Welcome to Hilary Topper On Air, the podcast you can't afford to miss.
Have you ever wanted to stop eating junk food but found you just couldn't? Do you think about food or your weight constantly? Food addiction can take many different forms. Symptoms include obesity, anorexia, and bulimia. But for many people faced with this addiction, there's hope. I'm Hilary Topper, and this is Hilary Topper On Air. Today, I'm speaking with Sandra Elia, who is the founder of the Addictive Eating Recovery Program. Hi, Sandra. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your journey in recovering from food addiction?
For sure. I am a certified food addiction counselor, one of the first in the world, in fact. And so I had to get my certification in Europe because we don't have such a thing in North America, if you can believe that. And I chose to get into this profession because I took what I thought was one of the greatest downfalls in my life and I turned it into one of the greatest blessings of my life. And that downfall was being 29 years old, being over 100 pounds overweight. My whole life was spiraling out of control. Living with obesity isn't just about body image or body weight, but it really does affect every single area of your life. I was in a bad marriage and it was breaking down. I was trying to take care of my mom and she was living with obesity and bipolar disorder. So we were in a very enmeshed and entangled relationship. And I was off work. I had a nervous breakdown at 29 years old and I was off work. So it was really a rock bottom point in my life. And I was using food as my only solace, my only source of strength. It was the way that I could get through the day. It was my comfort. It helped me alleviate all pain. And then eventually it became a drug in my life. And I not only, used it for comfort, I had to have it. If I tried to stop, I would have incredible cravings that would drive me to go to great lengths, walking in rainstorms, driving all hours of the night. This was before Uber Eats, of course. And just to have the comfort and the ease that ultra processed foods would give me. And I took that really rock bottom time and I rebuilt my life. And it started, people always ask, what was the turning point? What was that moment in time? And there was no real moment in time, but I do remember that I accepted myself exactly as I was, all 260 pounds of me, and I'm only 5'2", with all the lumps and the bumps and the stretch marks, and I had to love myself. And I know that that sounds like an old cliche, and if you're struggling with that, understand that love is energizing. Self-hatred, self-condemnation, self-judgment is very, very draining. And it will rob you of every ounce of motivation. So think about it. How much energy do you need to make all these changes into your life? So it really did get to a place where, like, whether I lose another pound or not, it does not matter. I just can't keep living like this and I cannot keep eating like this. And so it began by just eliminating refined flour and refined sugar products. So what are refined flour products? So pizzas and pastas and just that ultra processed white fluffy stuff and refined sugar. And we all know what that looks like: a cookie, a cupcake, a donut. Fruit is fine. Fruit is natural. And I eliminated those foods. And then I had to really shine a light across my entire life and figure out what were the drivers in my life that caused me to use food for comfort. If you have really broken areas of your life or areas of your life that are very dysfunctional, causing you pain, well, what do we do as addicts? Addicts look for pain relief. And so I really had to clean up my marriage and clean up my relationships and put in some spiritual practices. And, sometimes people will confuse spirituality with religion. I do not help anybody with religion. That's a personal relationship. And so for me, spirituality is really healing the damage done to our self-worth and self-esteem. So if you've struggled with your weight or your eating for years, maybe decades, like myself, it really takes a toll on your self-esteem and your self-worth. And so spirituality is just reminding you who you are, reminding you of your worth, reminding you of your power. So I took my journey and I've made it into my life's work and my life's passion. And I help people overcome addictive eating. And that's through changing the relationship they have with themselves and changing their relationship with food.
So how can we manage these food cravings? I mean, is it that we're addicted to sugar and we have to have more? And, how do we get through that?
Yeah, so I like to draw parallels with food addiction. And food addiction it's not the right word because nobody's actually addicted to real food like chicken and broccoli. We can generally self-regulate with chicken and broccoli. It's really these chemically engineered, highly addictive, and I call them food-like substances, right? Like, and it's confusing because a Dorito looks like food, but there's very little of it that's a food. So when we draw parallels between people who suffer from alcoholism and people who are living with food addiction, there are people out there who can enjoy a glass of wine and that's it, and maybe not think about wine again for a week or two. And that person with alcoholism looks at that and says, why not me? Why can't I have that glass of wine? Why does it always take me to the point where I'm fall down inebriated? Why? I want to be like everyone else. And that's very similar with the food addict, right? We can watch other people enjoy ultra-processed foods, junk food, fast foods, and not have the same consequences that we have. So I always suggest that trying to negotiate how much of your drug to have is much more difficult than not having your drug at all, right? So it's much easier for someone with alcoholism to say, I'm not going to drink than say, I'll just drink on Fridays or I'll just have beer or maybe other day. And it never seems to work. And it's sort of the same with the food addict. It's better to eliminate these foods that are not peaceful for us, just one meal at a time, one day at a time, than trying to negotiate how much. And I really help people through a little 3-step, I call it a cognitive behavioral therapy little trick. It's recognizing that a craving is always a lie. It's a little lie we tell ourselves. Maybe that lie is, I'm too stressed today. I need comfort. My favorite one used to be the diet will start tomorrow. And if the diet's going to start tomorrow, well, then I might as well eat everything I can get my hands on because I'm going to eat salad for the rest of my life. Just calling it out as a lie is the first step, right? And I don't negotiate with lunatics, including the one that lives in my head that tries to convince me that having these drugs are a good idea. And the next step is really looking at this craving as maybe just a little brain glitch. Is it just a habit? Is it that at 3 o'clock you eat something sweet, whether you're hungry or not, and your brain's like, hey, it's 3 o'clock. Where's our treat? Or is it that every time you sit in front of Netflix and on the sofa, you have a bowl of yummy beside you and you sit down to watch that Netflix movie and your brain kind of goes crazy and it's like, where's the bowl? There's usually a bowl here. And then lastly, cravings can sometimes bring on anxiety, especially if you've been struggling with eating for a long time. And so I always recommend taking 3 deep cleansing breaths that does a couple of things. One, it helps to ground you and it oxygenates your brain. And the more oxygen your brain has, the better it can make a good decision.
Those are great tips. So before we move on, I just have to say that I'm so appreciative of our sponsors and must thank them. Please support our sponsors and tell them that you heard about them on Hilary Topper On Air. Special thanks to the Russo Law Group, Strain Print, The Profit Express, and Fortuna Fine Jewelry. So back to you, Sandra. So we are talking about food addiction. You're one of the world's first certified food addiction counselors. Can you tell us exactly what that means?
Yeah, so I have been trained on how to deal with and help people recover from food addiction. So I created Canada's first outpatient program that I run out of a medical clinic. It's a year-long program, and it includes 8 instructional videos and weekly support meetings. And so my program sits on 3 pillars. The first at the bottom is really making sure that my client has an internal environment that is kind, gentle, and loving. This is really important because think about a work environment that is harsh and punishing. Do you flourish in that kind of environment? No.
No way. Right.
And so we need to create an environment where we can flourish. So that's really the first step. That's the internal dialogue. The internal environment is kind, gentle, nurturing. And the program sits on 3 pillars. We eliminate our trigger foods. Trigger foods are foods that once I start, they're very difficult to stop. I rarely have a reasonable portion and often will lead to a binge. So we eliminate those 1 meal at a time. The second is community support. So I, through the weekly support meetings, have created a community of support where one another, who you surround yourself with, you become. And sometimes our family and friends can't support us in this. They sometimes give us advice that really hurt us. So we just need to be tapped into people trying to do the same thing we're trying to do each day. And then the third pillar is spirituality and mindfulness, because addictive eating is mindless eating. So I really help people understand how to get into the moment, be present with your food, have it be an event as opposed to something you do while you answer email. And the top of this house, these 3 pillars, what we hope for people to achieve and what they do achieve is food serenity. Meaning you've gone back to eating food for nourishment and honoring our body, and no longer using food to numb out, stress relief, comfort, none of that, because food wasn't actually intended for that. So it's just finding that peace and neutrality with food. You enjoy your meal, you're happy with it, and then you move on with your day. It doesn't take up all the mental real estate it used to take up.
So if someone signs up for your food addiction recovery program, what can they expect? And can anybody sign up for this?
Yeah, so this year, the beginning of last year, January 2019, I only used to run my program in Ontario, Canada, but now it is a fully virtual program. So I'm so excited that it is in Europe, all across the United States, all across Canada and Mexico. So excited about that. So as soon as you sign up, you will be given a link to a portal. And in this portal, you'll find 8 instructional videos, resources, exercises to do at home, not like exercise, but ways to think about your relationship with yourself and food. And then where the real magic lies is in the weekly support meetings that you get for 1 year, facilitated by me, the founder, which is very unusual. Often people will have support meetings, but the founder doesn't really sit in on them or answer questions. I run them. So I each week present on a new topic. This is actually my favorite time of the week. It is such a labor of love. My colleagues are often like, you have to come up with new content every Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, I get to come up with new content every Wednesday. I love it. I speak for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then the rest of the time is an opportunity for participants to ask questions, get coached, celebrate successes. It's a very unique, high-touch program, and those are just done over Zoom. So anybody in the world can log in and be a part of it. And Zoom is very similar to Skype, and you can see everyone in the classroom, you can see me, and we can interact as though we're in the same room.
That's awesome. So can you share any success stories with someone who's gone through your program?
For sure. I'm not going to use her real name, but she was actually in my program for the pilot. So the pilot happened over 3 years ago. It was medically supervised. And she came in and she has taken my program over and over and over for the last 3.5 years. She'll tell you that she has had a complete shift in perception, meaning she looks at whole foods, real foods, as food. And everything else is this chemically engineered, disease-causing, nutrient-poor, food-like substances that robbed her of joy and health. And she's a woman in her late 60s. And often doctors will tell us, late 60s, that's a hard time to lose weight. She has lost 90 pounds on my program, only giving up sugar and flour products. And she just feels like a completely different person. She is completely peaceful about food, and she's just an inspiration. And she continues to take my program. She just signed up for another year because she needs the reminder and she needs the community support.
What do you think of these quick fix programs? I mean, so many people, they don't go with real food. They think like a Jenny Craig or some other type of program, or even, these surgeries are the way to go. Can you talk just for a moment about that?
For sure. So everyone needs to, I hate the word diet. I really prefer an eating plan. And you need to select an eating plan that you can comfortably do for the rest of your life. Whenever we embark on a super restrictive diet, this is very dangerous because there are mechanisms in your brain that go off, because there was a time when famine was a real threat to human history, and we still carry that same brain around that protects us against famine. And so even though it's an artificial famine, you've imposed it, your brain will drive up the signals to find food, eat food, not any food, but high calorie dense, sugary foods, and try to get your weight up as quickly as possible. And most people will gain more weight than they lost. And so those are the perils of trying to do a super restrictive diet. Some people do need bariatric surgery, and it can usually mean that it's really a life or death kind of situation. And however, the surgery doesn't change their thinking. It doesn't change their relationship with foods. And often those are some of my most heartbreaking clients, because their family made them feel as if they were taking the easy route. They were having surgery. There's nothing easy about bariatric surgery. It's actually very difficult, very painful, and your whole life has to be rehauled. And then they weren't helped with the emotional and mental aspects. And then they gain the weight back. So I think whatever route you want to take, you do have to do the work. And the work includes looking at your emotional state, your spiritual state, your relationships, everything. It really is a reflection of your entire life.
This has been amazing. This is so interesting. And, I know a lot of people out there who would definitely benefit from this. Can you tell my listeners how to get in touch with you and learn more about Food Addiction Recovery Program?
For sure. You can go on to my website, sandraelia.com. So Sandra is Sandra. Elia is E like Echo, LIA.com. And that's all one word, sandraelia.com. And you go over to my online program. And for your listeners, I've set up a coupon code. If you put in Lifestyle 2020, one word, Lifestyle 2020, you'll get 50% off. So this is the lowest price you can get my online program for 1 year. And I think you'll have that in the link. And I would love to meet as many of you as possible.
Well, thank you so much, Sandra, for being on the show. I also want to thank our sponsors, the Russo Law Group, Strain Print, Fortuna Fine Jewelry, and the Profit Express. And last but not least, I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. If you want more information on this show or any other show, visit our website at hilarytopperonair.com, or you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, even Amazon Alexa. You name it, we're out there. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.